Why don't you give me a sign?
This is Corinna Jane.
The leaves are trailing on that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine.
With her brand new single, Give Me a Sign.
While the world still spins,
As featured on BBC Introducing.
it's just the way it's gotta be. Give me a sign about the things that we don't know. Why don't you give me a sign?
Corinna Jane, Give Me a Sign. Out now.
It's not your problem, it's mine.
Hello, I'm Sophia Jessica, and welcome to the Fan Carpet.
So it's wonderful to have you to speak to you both today. This is great. Congratulations with the show, with the podcast. It's going from strength to strength. So if we go back to the beginning, was there a defining moment for you both to get into the entertainment industry?
No, not at all. We never in a million years thought that this would happen. And I don't remember ever having like an end game when we started Red-Handed. Like it genuinely was started as like a hobby, creative outlet thing that we thought would be fun. We never thought like this is what our career is going to become, because we had very different backgrounds. We were doing very different things back then. So no, I don't think so.
All right. In your careers before this, you were in theatre, weren't you?
I worked, the job I quit to do full-handed red time. Wow. Red-handed full-time. I was working at the Shaftesbury Theatre that at the time had Motown the Musical. So I was in... Red-handed is the only job I have ever had where I make decisions that matter. But I was very much in a supporting role and like running around after little Michael Jackson and stuff like that. But it was... there were a lot of good things about it, but it was very much a stepping stone job rather than a like career thing.
Yeah. And like Hannah said, we were in completely different roles. We didn't even know each other. The show's been doing for 4 years now, and we met about 4.5 years ago. And at the time I was working in conference production, which is just, no one works in conference production hoping to one day make it into the entertainment industry, that's for sure. So it was just complete happenstance. We pinch ourselves every day that this is what we do now.
Wonderful. Now, you recorded the first episode from a violin cupboard under the stairs, and since then you've gone from strength to strength, as I said. How familiar were you with podcasting when you first created Red-Handed?
Oh gosh, I guess as a listener, yes. But in terms of what it actually took to be a podcaster, zero. So Hannah and I, we had no experience whatsoever in broadcasting, in journalism, in research, not this kind of research at least, script writing, audio, anything, radio. We just had zero clue, less than zero, if possible, clue. And that's why we got locked in a violin cupboard, because we had so little idea what we were doing. And we've taught ourselves everything as we've gone, completely self-taught. And I think that is one of the things we're most proud of. Of course, when we listen to our old episodes now, it can be tough, especially with the audio quality, but we're also so proud of how far we've come. And I think a lot of our original listeners, I think that is one of the things that they really appreciate, that we're definitely not a manufactured podcast. We definitely weren't put together by a corporation. We are as homegrown as it could possibly come.
And I'm very grateful for, even though in the beginning it was incredibly painful having to just figure it out, I'm so glad that we taught ourselves how to do it all, because now as a business, we have people that work with us now. We're a team of soon to be 5, and everyone can do everything because we are able to teach them. Whereas if we were outsourcing anything from the beginning, we wouldn't have control over that. So I think that's something I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. So what do you think it is about true crime that is still so fascinating for us to consume?
I think people are inherently interesting. It's the subject of absolutely every piece of content out there almost is about people. And when a person kills another person or does something horrendous, it's interesting. I think that is the bottom line. And I think everyone is morbidly fascinated to a certain extent. Some people just aren't very honest about it.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what Hannah said. The idea of we're just fascinated with the very extremes of human behavior, whatever that is. And I just think what is more extreme than killing another person? And this is why we do see with the episodes that cross taboo lines do the very best, because people are fascinated with that. I mean, if you can chuck in cannibalism, incest, I mean, people are just like, oh, that's what I want to listen to, because it just, the weirder it is, the more fascinated people are. And it's not a scientific study, but I 100% stand behind it. That's what people are into, whether they want to admit it or not.
Cool. Yeah. Red-Handed has been covered in the press, from The Guardian to BBC Radio 4 to BBC Belfast, Radio Times, and many others. How does it feel to have that sort of recognition?
Ooh. I don't know if I'd ever thought about us having a reputation in that kind of way before. But I suppose we probably do. It feels great to be like, it's validating, honestly, when you're covered by such like well-regarded institutions. I think when Front Row that we did for Radio 4 was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my entire life. But knowing that live national radio is under our belts is really empowering.
Definitely.
Right. And on the other side of that recognition, you've got a legion of fans, affectionately known as the Spooky Bitches, with some famous faces, including Dan Harmon and Anna Paquin among them. Is that comforting to know that you're reaching millions with the series?
I don't know if comforting is the right word. It's nerve-wracking, if I'm honest. I think because we never intended this to be what it is today, we never anticipated reaching the reach that we have. And also, I just don't think that we really comprehend how many people are listening. You sit in your bedroom, we record on our own, we put the episode up, then we have the people that engage with us on social media, and we can see through the back end of our platform how many people are listening. But it's just numbers. It doesn't feel real sometimes. And then when you get messages from someone like an Anna Paquin being like, oh, I love this show and it changed the way I think about this, it's like, bloody hell, like that is crazy. So I think it's also quite a good thing that we don't focus that much on who's actually listening. We just want to keep the show growing, but having the same vibe of us just being ourselves and talking to each other. And I think while it is exhilarating and nerve-wracking to think how many people are listening, I actually try to keep it out of my mind and just do the show the way we've always done it.
Yeah. Cool. And for you, Hannah?
Yeah, I think because we haven't been, when we are really confronted with when we get to see our listeners in person as live shows, right? And we haven't been able to do that at all for a year. And in that year, we've grown significantly. So I think we will get quite an awakening, I think, when we go back on the road, which we're so excited to do. But I am also in agreement with Suruthi that I looked at our analytics the other day to send off a pitch for something, and there was a new analytic that I hadn't seen before that was individual device interaction with our RSS feed. So like when you see download numbers and stuff, you're like, great, but that could be the same person downloading 50 episodes. You don't know if they're unique. But this like was unique, and it was something like 25,000 individual people listened yesterday, or something like an enormous amount of number in a very specific and small amount of time. And that can feel a little bit overwhelming. So yeah, I'm with Saru on that. We try and think about it in broad strokes rather than, I think if I actually focused on just how many people with like lives and jobs and cars listen, I would feel, I mean, we're incredibly lucky to have such an enormous audience, but sometimes it's easier to take a step back from it as well.
Yeah. We met Joe Berlinger at the UK premiere of his film Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. I know he isn't a fan of the True Crime moniker, but he's a fascinating creator, having done documentary series and a film around the same subject. Is he an inspiration to you?
We actually did a Q&A with Joe at a screening of Extremely Wicked. And not only do I find his work particularly interesting, he's really nice. He was it was one of the first events we'd ever done, ever. Saru was still working full time when we did the Extremely Wicked screening. We did it at the Soho Hotel, and it was such an incredible experience because we were like, oh wow, like we can do these things. And Joe was so like gentle with us. Like he was so like made sure that everyone had a really great time, and we did end up having a really interesting discussion based around Extremely Wicked. And obviously, you know, Ted Bundy is such a hot topic in true crime, and that film in particular got a lot of people talking for a lot of different reasons. So we were very privileged to do that with him.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Really nice guy. What about you? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think very similar to Hannah. Joe's just a lovely guy. We had such a great time with that. And in terms of him being an inspiration, I think anyone who works in the space of true crime, we do take inspiration from. And I think particularly Joe's other work, his documentary work, aside from the movie work that he was doing, in particular, Paradise Lost series, I thought was fantastic. I think that is such a controversial, difficult case. And I think that we, like kind of said, we're not investigative. We're not an investigative podcast. We are a storytelling podcast. We're not out on the front lines, like doing what Joe did in his documentary days. We are just retelling stories. So we do naturally take inspiration from directors like Joe because we use their content as resource and research materials to inform the stories that we tell. So we're incredibly privileged and humbled whenever we can work with somebody like that. And yeah, Joe's up there for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, he's, like I say, he's a great guy. We spoke to him and his family. Really cool. So in these unprecedented times, what are you looking forward to getting back to?
The pub.
Touring.
Yeah, just outside the pub, seeing people again. We're in the process of getting an office space so we can like be in the same room. Hannah and I haven't been in the same room. Well, we did like a little writer's break when the lockdown was lifted during the summer last year, but we basically haven't been in the same room in a year, which is bizarre. And yeah, we're just really excited for how much better our recordings can be when we can record in the same room again. So I'm excited to record a show in the same room as Hannah and then go to the pub after. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, very much the same. Very excited to start doing live shows again. We're also keen to do a bit more video content, which is obviously going to be much easier once we can physically be in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's sick of recorded Zoom calls.
Yes.
Yeah. True crime is ever popular. Is there a case from a book that hasn't been adapted to film or TV or Netflix yet that you'd, or even the basis of a documentary that you'd love to be a part of?
Oh,
That's a good question. What's a case I love I'd like to be a part
the
of?
one I love that we haven't done anything with because it feels a bit too special is Gail Benson. It's the basis of the film Bank Job, but I think it's got Jason Statham in it. And as far as I know, there has been no documentary. Gail Benson was the daughter of Lord Plug, who sat in the House of Lords. And there's a bit of a rumor that he was actually an MI6 operative. And she ended up dead in a ditch in Trinidad. And nobody ever went to trial for her killing. All massive mystery. And there's also some nudes of Princess Margaret that show up. I think it's a really incredible story, and I don't think anyone's run with it in the way that it could be run with. So that one I'm sitting on like an egg.
Yeah, I think for me, it would have been Elisa Lam. It's such a fascinating story. Obviously, that's just been done now for Netflix. And I know it's not the same thing, but obviously there is even a movie like Dark Water, which is quite kind of reminiscent of that case, even though I think it came out before, the Japanese version came out way before Elisa Lam actually happened, which is quite scary as well. But I think other than that, I would really love to explore a British crime, similarly to Hannah, because I think that we so often are inundated, even here, with American stories. We've got loads of fucked up shit on our own doorstep, so we don't need to look that far. And I think particularly within the sort of British Asian community, so I just watched on ITV the retelling or dramatization of the murder of Banaz Mahmood, who was a British, was she a Turkish woman? Kurdistan? Yeah, I can't remember. Kurdish British woman. And she was murdered by her own uncle and her father. Stars Keeley Hall as a detective. It's great. Good three-parter all round. I would love to be involved in something like that because I think that true crime is always going to reach people, but I think some people find it a bit gritty. So if we can just adapt it into movies or TV shows that people feel like they can just watch, we can impart the same message, which I think is part of the key thing we try to do.
Absolutely. So with the popularity of streaming services like Netflix, what do you think the future of cinema is?
Ooh. It's complicated, isn't it? Because you've kind of got COVID plus the streaming service world colliding. And how do we come out of this? I remember when COVID first started and that movie Tenant was meant to be the movie that was going to save cinema from a COVID-related disaster, and wasn't the best movie. It doesn't appear to have saved anything, and I just wonder how people's behavior is going to be transformed, not just by lockdown, but also by just the rise of streaming services, because it's not just even Netflix now, it's everybody, it's anybody and every. I mean, we've got Apple TV, we've got Now TV, we've got Amazon, got Netflix, and they're not even just the convenience. They are genuinely producing some misses, but some really, really great original content that looks as good as if it had been shot for the big screen. And I think it's going to be difficult for cinemas to compete with that, I think, sadly.
Yeah, I think the good thing about streaming services and everyone having them is there is a lot of money kicking around to commission new work, and I think that's really exciting.
That's really true.
And I completely agree with you, Suri. Like, some of the Netflix originals that are being cracked out now are just, the quality is so high, and people are just much more used to watching in their home. So I wonder, I went to a drive-in cinema a couple of months ago, like in the sort of briefest snatch of freedom that we got in the end of summer. And that was really nice. Like, I like the idea of going to watch something outside of my house. I just don't know if it's going to come back.
That's the thing. I think there is that magic to still going to the cinema and being around other people and watching something. And I think it was literally the week before lockdown, I went to the cinema, and I love going to the cinema, but I went to go see Invisible Man. It was great, and I thought that it was a really tense movie. The audience reaction was great, but there was also a man sat next to me who rustled his receipt for the entirety of the movie, and I was just like infuriated by what was going on. And so I just think it is going to be difficult, but at the same time, I completely agree with Hannah that the more streaming services there are, they are just willing to take more of a risk as well with the content that they produce. If you watch some originals, things like I watched, I'm thinking of Ending Things, that never would have got sign-off from a big studio in Hollywood to create that film and try sell tickets. But Netflix or Amazon, they can take more risks, put money into indie or more like experimental filmmakers who will produce something that I think will just give us a revamp in terms of what we're watching. So we're not just all watching, The Conjuring 13 or something. Like, let's have some new original ideas, which would be great.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I haven't stepped into a cinema since March of last year. The last thing I saw was Mulan.
Yes.
Because they did the UK
I thought
premiere.
I would be really upset by no songs, but I was fine. I had a good time.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So what are you hoping the audience will take away from Red Handed when they get a chance to listen to it? Do you have any exciting things planned that you can tease?
Do you know, I think one of the things that we did talk about in the really, really early days of Red Handed, of what we wanted to achieve, is if someone listened to an episode and then thought about something in a different way because of what we had said, and we wanted that was pretty much our only goal, is for someone to re-examine an opinion they previously had, and I think we're pretty good at doing that. So that's something that the audience can look forward to. What have we got coming up? Oh, actually, we very recently did a interview with Emily Kenway about her book, The Truth About Modern Slavery, which is really, really incredible book. Certainly changed my paradigm, and it made me realize that I have a fundamental misunderstanding of what modern slavery actually means. And we did an interview with her, which was fascinating. That's coming out in a couple of weeks. And then, sort of informed by that interview, we have an episode coming out, not this Thursday, Thursday after, about Operation Fort, which was the biggest modern slavery investigation in the UK that happened in 2015, and there were 400 victims. So we're covering that one in a couple of weeks, which I would recommend purely because I've learned so much about modern slavery and how that buzzword is used to misdirect our attention from other significant problems with the way our economy works that nobody wants to address.
Absolutely. And I think it's very similar to what Hannah said about what people can expect from Red Handed. Is we're not trying to force any sort of narrative on people. We just want people to re-examine certain things. Even we do that during the course of the research. One case in particular springs to mind. We did the case of Otto Warmbier, so the American teenager who went to North Korea, and he died. He was sent back to the US in a coma, and he died after he was put in a labor camp in North Korea. I thought I understood what had happened in that case, and I went in to tell quite a harrowing but a straightforward story of, oh, aren't these North Koreans awful and look what's happened. And yes, that's in there. But also what actually happened to Otto doesn't marry up with what the news media was saying had happened to him, like politically speaking, or literally speaking, when you look at his post-mortem results. And so I think when you realize that halfway through research, you're like, oh, we have to completely transform what we're saying in this. And so many people got in touch with us after saying, thank you so much for releasing that story, because so many people thought that Otto was just this kind of dick who had gone there, done these things, and got himself into that position. And actually, really recently, one of his very good friends had that episode and messaged us and said, thank you so much, because the way you described him is accurate. That's who he was. And I think that we're never about the victim blaming. It's always about telling the most accurate story. And if we can make people change their minds about something, excellent. And I think you can expect a lot more of that in the future as well for Red Handed. We're really enjoying at the moment taking on more of these kind of geopolitical cases and bigger cases as well. We love the sort of micro stories of horrible murders that happen in a family. Sounds awful when I say love, but that's always a really fascinating dynamic. But we're also super fascinated in murders that happened on a grand scale and impact geopolitical opinions, like the death of Otto Warmbier. Or, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we covered the case of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi journalist. And I think that it just allows us to always keep it fresh and explore all of the things that we're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I let you go, where can you be found on social media and online and everything? I know you've got a merch range as well.
Yeah, we are. You can follow us on it. Essentially everything. Our handle is at Red Handed the Pod, and you can find our merch and everything else at redhandedpodcast.com, and you can listen to Red Handed wherever you find your podcast.
Wonderful. All right, great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation with you guys. Congratulations with the podcast, and yeah, let it go for strength to strength even further.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very
Marc.
much. Take care.
It was lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Take
Bye.
care.
See you later. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more content next time.
I'm here on the largest of the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, with the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, beautiful mountainous landscape, the thriving city of Palma, quaint little market towns, a growing number of luxury hotels. It's no surprise that the likes of Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor like to holiday here. So come and join me as I take you round Mallorca.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.